We are live for YouTube. Hello, YouTube Live. This is April the 18th, 2024. We're going to be talking about substance abuse language, which is an interesting topic that I want to go at. I did this before when Ben was on, didn't I? That was my my phone. That
There's a little feedback there.
I turned the button off, but it doesn't care about the volume anyway.
Because that's for your ringtone.
Oh, well,
you need to turn the actual volume down to turn the sound of videos.
That is
down.
Victoria Pendergrass hanging out with us.
Hi, guys.
And Mr. John
Hey,
Pope.
nice seeing y'all.
So it'll be a cool show talking about substance abuse. But we were talking about Navy stuff, and I wasn't really
Go
exactly
Navy.
done with that. So you get a little behind the scenes on Thursdays when we record the show, where you turn Spotify on and Apple podcasts and wherever you get your podcasts.
Stitcher.
So this is before that. But yeah, it's surprising that you went in at age 32. And,
Yeah.
And
I feel like that's not
Did a
really
lot.
heard of. Like, most people...
is that kind of rare or is that common for chaplains?
No, chaplains, it's not
That's-
rare because
yeah.
you have to
Right,
have
okay.
So much
you have
training.
Yeah, you have to so
All
much
this-
seminary training
yeah,
and
the
all
schooling
that.
and
So
stuff. But for
Right.
someone who's, like, not a chaplain, that's really not...
yeah, but
Heard
Well,
of
you
it.
can go in
I know you can.
up into age 49. Did you know that?
In any branch or just the Navy?
It probably does vary for branches.
It does.
I can't imagine I'd be 49
But-
years old going to the Marines. Like, no.
now part of that
That's just not going to happen.
part of that
no.
is I had 6 years of active duty, and so during the 9/11, I just barely missed because they've raised since 9/11 the age that you could go into
Oh, really?
in the service. Yeah, they did it every.
Okay. Yeah, so
it-
that's a
2 years.
fairly recent new.
Yeah, within the last 15 years, but it's something that I was wanting to go back in the worst way on 9/11.
Neil, when you're done typing and ready to go live, we'll kick into the live show.
But I was too old.
Yeah, I actually got invitations or solicitations and whatnot in the mail
Oh, really?
until I was like 30, 35.
Yeah. Well,
join?
you were
Yeah.
a social worker then, right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah,
I
you
almost
could have
wonder-
gone in as an officer.
I almost
Really?
wonder...
Yeah.
And if you got in the Air Force, I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
If you go in the Air Force, the Air Force, you would.
You said that on purpose or by mistake? I wasn't
did
sure.
on purpose. Yeah. But you would have had a very wonderful experience.
Honestly, I considered it for a half a minute. I mean, it wasn't like blow off, but at that point in my life, I mean, I'm raising kids and doing a
Yeah.
lot of stuff. It's like, how can I do that too? But yeah. I don't know. I'm proud of my son. We talk about my son who is in the Navy. Adam, if you happen to listen to this, buddy, here's hats to you, man. Proud of you. Stupid proud dad here, that's for sure.
Yeah. Adam, I hope you get to have the great joy of going down from a helicopter onto a ship, a deck of a ship, on a destroyer, on the Holy Hilo.
That'd be awesome.
Nothing quite like it.
Nothing quite like it.
Yeah.
And they have a pole there to discharge.
in.
Yeah. Well, rope you in, but also make sure you don't get too much static electricity.
Oh, shoot.
Oh, really?
Because the helicopter blades go round, 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 and they create an electrical charge.
Would never have put that together.
We ready? Ready. All right.
Shocking.
Here we go for the live show, y'all. Hello, this is Through a Therapist's Eyes, and I am Chris Gazdick, where we invite you to experience mental health through the lens of a therapist, knowing this is not the delivery of therapy services in any way. This is April the 18th, and we're going to be talking about the language of substance abuse, which I will explain shortly. Kind of a different self-generated concept that I've always thought about. Very curious to see and hear what the panel is going to be thinking about, which we have Mr. John Pope hanging out with us
Hi.
and Miss Victoria Pendergrass.
What's that?
Ooh, a different little tone today. That's a
no.
curious tone.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Also want to apologize if you can see my shirt on this on the video portion. I have a 2-year-old, and he spilled his pouch all
Now,
over
who
me.
would have known
I mean, it's all
Unless
over
you
on
brought
you.
it.
It's all over on YouTube.
Chris has made a comment almost every time he's passed by me.
Oh,
today.
that's so not true. Take that back. They're going to think I'm mean to you.
But I have a 2-year-old, and he spilled his pouch on me this morning, and I didn't have time to go home and change my shirt.
That is parenting, baby.
Yeah.
So, what do I say in intro? Subscribe. Your job, if you like the content that we do share. We really do need you to click the subscribe button. Click
Share
the
it,
little
send it to a
bell.
friend.
5 stars.
What's 5 stars?
Oh, if you like our podcast, that you give us 5 stars.
John gets upset with 4 stars. And
Yeah.
what'd you say, Victoria?
I said, share it, send it to a friend.
Makes a big difference for us being found. Contact at throughatherapistseyes.com is the way that you interact with us. Very excited. I will have books available, John. Through a Therapist's Eyes, Volume 2, Re-Understanding Your Marriage, You Becoming
Yay.
Your Best as a Spouse. That will be printed out and available out of the office soon. Pretty excited about that. Didn't forget anything yet. I got another piece.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Victoria, what is this? The
This is-
human emotional experience, and we endeavor.
To figure it out together.
See?
And this is not the delivery
I
of
said that.
No, you did not.
Yes, I did, most certainly.
No, you did not.
Play it back. Red flag moment. We did it. We'll do it. I did. All right, let's get busy, man.
Either way, you'll edit it so it sounds like you did it.
No. We don't really edit on this show, man. we don't.
There is like a very little editing, I think.
It really is very little editing. Listen, we have limited manpower and energy for all that stuff. So what we say is what you get. We're not going back unless we really have a major slip up or some sort of something. All right, we do have a current event, John. I decided to make the article you shot over the current event.
Yeah.
It's almost akin, would probably be better for, dang it, I forgot my stopwatch, Neil. Okay, thank you. For the rabbit hole, down the rabbit hole at the end of the month reviews, this would be a really good one. So I was thinking of Adam out there. He could have used this for down the rabbit hole. But I wanted to make it a current event and talk about it actually as our panel.
Okay.
To look at this as for a moment, because I think it's an important deal. Did you read the article?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't do it in depth, but I read it.
Okay, and Victoria, you don't know what we're talking about, so you'll have
absolutely no idea.
reserve your comments and see what you think about this. The article is titled "The Dark Side of AI in Mental Health." What did you remember from the article?
Well, I remember from the article that it started off with I think this was on Medscape.
Med Page Today.
Med Page Today, and basically, the gist of the issue is that there was somebody that reported, and I think it was a professional, a therapist, reported that somebody was wanting his data or data.
You're right. It was a TikTok influencer
right.
that wrote in saying, "Hey, what's up?"
Right. And the idea is that it was asking for the data of people's notes. And so, well, there's ethical issues there, obviously. Well, why would a therapist,
WTF, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
very major.
Jeez.
But the idea is, I think ultimately, is that it develop a program where you wouldn't need a therapist anymore. You would have the AI,
Like the AI would be your
right,
therapist.
the algorithm, yeah, and be able to have responses and then feed that into that. The idea this is a diagnosis.
So the way that
Interesting.
what this is, as I understand it, John, a playoff onto one of many manifestations of the large language model
Right.
programs that are out there. That's called artificial intelligence. And large language models, as I understand them, are basically what you get with ChatGPT and other type programs that basically you feed a computer thousands upon millions and millions of data points. Essentially all of the internet it scans, and all at once that's how it sort of becomes human in an artificial intelligence way and spit things back at you.
Yeah.
right?
And
that's my understanding of the way it works.
Yeah, the idea, and the thing is that it would be, therefore the algorithm would be designed that you punch something in. I said I'm depressed, and it would respond appropriately.
So that basically you would have an artificial intelligence bot therapy,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So what they're doing is they're trying to take transcriptions of real therapy sessions.
Right.
They were asking for clinicians, Victoria, to offer for $50 a transcription your therapy transcriptions. They didn't want the name, I guess, of the transcription, but wow. This just screams all kind of ethical concerns for us, because they were looking for millions of transcriptions to feed into this large language model to create a program that would do good.
That would be a therapist.
AI
Right.
therapist service. Yeah.
Wow.
Crazy, right?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Exactly.
Well, first of all, once you're outside of grad school, who's even keeping a transcript of their therapy sessions anyways?
Well, you'd be
Is
surprised.
See me.
Yeah. 'Cause,
Not
like,
a full session.
No. Just detailed notes.
well,
So-
but that's still not like if you read my notes, it's
Yeah, well,
enough,
it
like,
doesn't. It doesn't matter. Either they're taking the progress notes that you can offer. I think they're
Okay.
looking for session transcripts. Yeah, full
Yeah, full
videos,
videos.
and there's
Well,
lots
They do
of
that.
things
I
looking for.
haven't done any of that since grad school.
for $50. How about you do that? That's the point,
Eh,
right? It's crazy.
that's
Crazy,
not
man.
enough.
Yeah.
That's not enough for
What
me to
about
break
informed
ethical concerns.
consent
To break
to
ethical-
the client too? I mean, there's all sorts of issues.
There's client. There's
There's
this is massive
confident-
issues.
yeah.
Client consent, ethical considerations, confidentiality, right to care, competency issues, poor performance of the AI bot. What board is going to oversight this? What are the
Right.
there's a plethora of things just off the top of my head and thinking about it. It's just amazing to me the depths of the new world we're beginning to live in, where people would even consider.
But you see, they live in these influencers live in that worldview, and it's
remarkable.
Yeah, and so they don't understand what it's like actually to have privacy, or to have a semblance of wanting to have privacy, and
Yeah.
and
Because
also
their-
that.
because their world is so put out there,
Right.
Like for
Without
everybody
having,
to see.
so they're diffuse. Their personalities are diffuse into the ether, so to
Yeah.
speak.
Yeah, so it's just an interesting current event to kind of keep on the watch for, and the
definitely
reality
makes me
of
nervous.
online AI generated therapy. And I'm not trying to be a fuddy-duddy and a boomer, or I'm a Gen Xer. Not
No,
trying
I'm
to
a
say,
boomer. You're a Gen
Yeah.
Xer.
Look, there are so many nuances in a powerful relationship between two human beings in a therapeutic environment that you can not replicate that.
Like, yeah,
Mic drop.
yeah,
Let's move on.
yeah.
Yeah.
You are
I
so
don't
articulate.
like it.
A what?
I don't
You are
like it.
so articulate.
Uh-oh. How, did I do something wrong or
No,
right?
no, you did well.
All right, here's the 3 questions that we're looking at. Do you speak the language when we think of the language of substance abuse? How might you accept that there is a whole different worldview that addicts have? And then, do you know what addiction is? And I'm going to give you a forward on. We're not going to spend much time on the 3rd question, but I ran out of questions to think about this one. So I put that one on there.
You could have just done 2.
You know what it is if you see it.
Addiction. Well, we had we had a
Had
long
plenty
discussion
of episodes, yeah.
about that, and I want to refer. Where did I put that? Episode 222 is where you could go and check out our awesome conversation, where it was a show designed for a totally different thing. And remember,
And we
got into
yeah.
the discussion in the beginning that was meant to be segment number 1, what is addiction, and it ended up being the whole podcast,
Yeah.
right?
Which, speaking of, this is episode 270.
Oh, I know, right?
How crazy is that?
That is nuts. That is nuts,
yeah.
man. To be honest with you.
270.
I mean, John and I started on episode 200.
Is that a fact?
Yeah.
Yes.
That remember
wow.
because that's what you wanted to introduce the panel like on
I guess
this
so,
big
yeah.
like 200th episode. And so
Well, what's funny, thank you for reminding me of that. I will remember that now. It's a nice marker, and you're right. I did do that back then because timing kind of worked out well. It's getting to me. I don't know, Neil, how you feel about it. You don't have your mic set up today, but we've done a lot of these things, and they just kind of keep on running on, don't they? Which I love doing the show, guys.
if you
it's
think
the
about it-
highlight of my week still.
In end of May will be my 2 years.
At Metrolina?
Yeah.
Already? Man, time just blows by.
Isn't
It's-
it?
It's disturbing.
Turn around, and you're a young girl.
That's not what I was going to say.
Turn around.
I was
Yeah.
going to say turn around bright
I usually
eyes.
know your songs, John. I don't know that one.
No, that's
Okay.
an old one.
Let's get on to this. Like, what do we mean by the language of substance abuse? I think this is a show that I have in my mind. Like, I think about that phrase, the language of substance abuse, throughout my career. John, I'm really curious, being experienced in substance abuse, if you are like-minded in me, linking up with my brain in this word combo to see what it even means to you. I'm curious.
Well, when I was in the Navy, again, they made me go through, they didn't make me, I had a choice of doing this, going through the substance abuse program with other people that were dealing with alcoholism.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
I'm
And
impressed
so
with
I
that and
actually
glad for
was
that.
participated. I
As
was in the groups. I
Love
was
that.
a participant.
Love that.
Yeah.
Best training. I was as well. I
Yeah.
went to AA meetings and, all the
I went
family
to
group
yeah.
meetings and, was advantage of being able to be in a rehab. That was my graduate placement practicum. But what do you think? I'm asking, what do you think I mean by the phrase, the language of substance abuse?
Okay, I'm going to think in terms of, for example, somebody that is immersed in religion, for example, and we say they speak the language of Zion, which is of Christianity, for example,
Okay,
or Judaism. So I would say the language
Similar, isn't it?
Yeah. There's an adherence. There's a sense that you are participating, not just in we use the term language, but it is you're immersed in the whole understanding experience. It's a deep knowledge.
Yeah.
And a deep experience.
Exactly. That's absolutely on point, as I suspected it would be. I created this idea because I have a unique. I'm sure you've experienced this as well, John, and you will, Victoria, throughout time. I would anticipate where when I'm working with somebody on substance abuse issues, I find myself doing an exorbitant amount of education. In the beginning in addition to rapport building, an exorbitant amount of education.
Just got through doing that.
To get to you today, right?
Yeah.
This is what we do. And there's so many buzzwords, there's so many facets, there's so many pieces of information that are really important to understand the experience of addiction and recovery. And then I will do that, but then I will have sometimes the experience of people coming right out of rehab, and I'm meeting them for the first time.
They have.
You should see John's face on YouTube. It's great, right? You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They have the language installed
Yeah.
while they're in rehab. And furthermore, it's really cool when I meet with them.
But they all want to become substance abuse counselors. After that.
Absolutely,
So
because it's
Yeah.
so poignant in their life. And then I have the unique experience as well of working with somebody before rehab. They go to rehab and then they come back after rehab, which is what I just had. One of the reasons why I did the show. That just happened a couple of weeks ago. The guy came back from his rehab experience after I had already started therapy with him. And again, you see the same thing. The whole language is installed.
Right.
So it's such an important thing because family members don't have that language, y'all. They just don't.
Yeah.
Furthermore, addicts themselves don't have this language of something that their lives are wrapped around, the issue of addiction.
Right.
So this is an effort to kind of talk about some of the buzzwords this show. Go down through them. If you know anything or deal with a family member or you yourself, you will hear these words that we're going to go through tonight.
There's semiotics is an understanding of language in a certain way, and I'm mispronouncing it, but the idea is that each word has a profound meaning, And so those buzzwords are actually so that a person can understand their experience. So if one addict hears it from another addict,
Right.
they will know exactly what it is. And so that's a study of that.
The symbiotic
Yeah.
understanding of these concepts helps us do together what we cannot do alone, which is attain, more so maintain sobriety. Right? Yeah, so I thought a cool way to go about this, I approached Victoria, right?
Yeah.
And, you've talked about it on the show that your current understanding and level of experience, particularly coming out of school and working, however many years it's been, is limited with substance abuse. And I love that I've been able to say to her what I would say to any therapist listening. You need to go get training on this. We have got to bridge the gap between Victoria does mental health counseling and she'll refer to me to do substance abuse counseling and I'll refer to her to do mental health counseling. That's nonsense. Seriously, I know I may be stepping on some therapists' toes with this, but I feel strongly that it creates a major blind spot if you do not have an understanding of substance abuse issues. You may have a father to your client or a spouse to your client that has nothing to do with substance abuse, but I'm telling you, their lives are eaten up with this language that we're going to talk about today.
From generation to generation to generation.
Yeah.
So Victoria was going to list out from your level of experience, and I'm curious what you'll come out with. These are buzzwords. These are parts of the language that she has heard of, not having been specialized or depthy training yet.
And
on
without
this.
looking at, like, I did not get on the internet. I
didn't
didn't Google anything.
This is just out of your
I didn't
brain.
open a book. Yeah.
So what I want to do is let's go to your list.
Okay.
Let's go one through whatever and
Okay.
tell us what your thinking of each one is. And John and I want us to kind of, add to it so that, we're going to do a plethora of these
Right.
other than what you have listed. I'm pretty sure I have more. And give you almost these definitions, these experiences, so we could talk about substance abuse and you can develop a deeper understanding of it. So what do you got? Does that sound like a good plan?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. Lack of control
Okay. That's a big one.
was the first one.
You're gonna have to
and
keep
that was only
track of-
because we had talked about it. I'm gonna have to what?
Yeah, well, you're gonna have to keep track of where you are because that's a big one,
Yeah.
and that's because of what you're saying.
Well,
The show?
we had talked. That's why it's first is because we talked about it.
Yeah, but you said that in the hallway first.
I did.
That was, that was your idea. What is your understanding of that?
The lack of control is like where said individual feels like they don't have because I also put loss of control. So I put those like two separate, lack and then like the total loss of it.
Oh wow, interesting. You differentiated that. Never heard that before.
Yeah. So what more the lack of control is just that like you have the want to be controlling, like to have it under control. You just can't get to that point to where you are able to like not pick up the drink or like not pick up the whatever.
It's weird, right?
Yeah.
You're talking about an inanimate object, exactly like your tea
Right.
in this cup.
Which is
Having-
it smells wonderful.
It's hot cinnamon tea
That is delightful.
from Target.
How could something like that have control over you?
Right.
It's weird, right?
That is kind of like a weird concept when you think about
Right.
that. Yeah.
I had one of my professors actually was an alcoholic, is recovering.
Okay.
But he said when he got out of rehab and he thought because he was in the military, he was a colonel, and he was in the military at the time and he nearly lost everything. He was sitting out in front of a convenience store and he was debating whether to go in or not to get the whiskey that he wanted. Okay.
Struggling with some cravings.
Yeah, all that. And he imagined himself drinking it, and he found himself becoming inebriated.
Just
Literally
imagining it.
felt the
Literally
intoxication.
Felt the intoxication.
By just imagining it. By just imagining
That's
it.
how powerful that is.
Yeah.
It is amazing. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Because actually, I didn't have on my list. There's probably so many. I mean, I spent some time on it. You had cravings on your list?
No, I didn't.
Huh?
No,
Oh,
I thought
okay.
you were saying lack of control.
Oh, yeah, no. That
But I
was-
mean, that was where he.
No, I don't have cravings. But now that you mention it, then
Yeah.
yeah.
And you described, John, there's I don't know how much I know about it, honestly, or understand it, but there is a biological reality. You just
Right.
described that.
Yeah.
A biological reality, microchemically, if you will, in your body that pulls out this experience when you're having a craving. That blows my brain apart a little bit, to be honest with you. You know, I don't understand how that could be what you just described. I mean, I take that at face value, and people have described similar experiences. A real, like another one of our drinking dreams, relapse dreams. You know,
Right.
people wake up thinking they literally so vivid, panicked that they just lost their sobriety.
Because they had a
Wow.
dream that they were drinking,
Right.
or
a
whatever.
using
Yeah.
dream is what that is called. a
Wow.
using
Yeah, I
dream.
never
Yeah.
even thought
Those
of
are
that.
fairly common.
Very common.
And that,
Yeah.
that doesn't
Very,
yeah.
very common to have using dreams. See, I just want to make the point out to you, therapists or people listening. This is a very small sample size. Loss of control, cravings, using dreams. This is only a sliver of the whole language in
It's involved,
understanding what addicts go through and really experience, both in active addiction and using years and then in recovery. So there's a lot here. You might feel overwhelmed listening to the show. Understand you can listen back to it,
Pause. Yeah, take a
pause, breathe through it, think
break.
through
Come
it.
back later.
Absolutely, which is one of the reasons why I think this is going to be a really cool show that I refer to a lot
Yeah.
to help people understand these concepts. Okay. I do want to spend a little bit of extra time on the loss of control because it's so key.
Oh, the difference between the fact that I mentioned loss versus lack.
No, I never even thought about that. The way I would conceptualize
Like,
that
would
honestly,
you even
whether
see that
you
as two different things?
whether you meant it or not. No, I wouldn't. I see them as the same, but they could represent, you know, a lack of control is earlier stages
Whereas
of
a loss
addiction,
is
which
like-
is another buzz phrase, stages.
Right.
Early, middle, and late, basically. And a loss would maybe be later stages.
Yeah.
Because there is a progressive nature to these things, which is another buzzword. The progressive nature means it starts small and it gets bigger. Starts like a small snowball on top of a hill. And every rotation, it grows bigger and bigger. That's another one, isn't it? I
Yeah.
don't think that was even on my list. Progression. So many things.
Yeah.
Progression, even when you're in a state of recovery.
So go there. Use
No.
cigarettes as an example. It's perfect.
No. You go ahead.
Why? Okay, well, you don't want to?
No, I don't want to.
So what I think you're referring to, John, is this other amazing thing about substance use that happens. Progression is like that snowball. It gets bigger, not smaller. Ironically, even when you're not using with addiction, the thing gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
And then you bump in and you relapse.
So an
and,
easy way to think about this is if you smoke a pack of cigarettes, addiction, right?
Right.
And you've been smoking for 10 years, and you stop smoking for 5 years, and you pick cigarettes back up. Victoria, you would think you would start off at a pack a day, right? But that whole 5 years, what do you think happens when you pick back up? How much are you smoking? Pack and a half.
Okay.
It's as though
In a
you
relatively short
continue-
period of time,
Yeah.
it's though you never stopped progressing.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah.
Crazy.
Also, the physiological aspects of it, with particularly with alcohol.
Alcohol, cocaine, nicotine.
You're right.
It's not with all substances.
Right.
This particular
You're right.
weird thing that we're describing, but with most. Would
With
you
most,
agree?
yeah, I would agree.
Adderall, stimulants,
Yeah.
all of that. Yeah.
That's why one has to practice recovery or sobriety. That's why it's important to keep.
one of the reasons why the
Right.
only answer we know when we identify addiction is sobriety.
Mm-hmm.
That's a whole nother show.
Yeah. Okay.
What's the next one? Yeah.
This kind of got spiraling.
Oh, interesting. What did you? Oh, this is fascinating. What did you mean by that?
I guess
Because that's
more-
not really a term, I don't think.
right.
No, I'm not
I
familiar
guess it's
with
more
it.
Yeah, I'm
maybe
not either,
just
John.
like describing, like maybe it's more of like an adjective, like a descriptive word.
It seems
for
like
what
it's an
happened.
adjunct to
Yeah. Maybe
to,
the lack of
like,
control,
lack of
yeah.
control.
Okay, I'll just keep going then.
No, don't.
Oh no. Okay.
Here's why. Honestly, guys, as we're talking about this, I want you to realize I didn't spend enough time on my little brainstorming list.
Yeah.
Because we've just had like 7 of these,
Yeah,
and here's
yeah.
another one that I did not have on my list, and I guess I
Well,
didn't
and the
spend a
way-
long time
where
on
I
it.
came from it is
Okay.
I kind of imagine like when someone at the beginning stages, maybe when it's like that lack of control, that the spiraling comes in because it just like I get because it's kind of like that snowball effect. Like it just starts and it just like it
Well,
just
let me jump in and
goes.
say, because what I unless you have something there, John, I'm sorry.
No, I got the imagination of people going out to Rye Bridge and binge drinking and starting that process,
Yeah.
going to parties,
Yeah,
all the
and then
time.
it just going like
Mm-hmm.
taking off from there, and then
snowballs.
yeah.
So the spiraling that isn't a term I don't think that is typically used in this
right.
language. But the reason why I think it's cool is because there is a term. I'm sure you've heard of this before, Victoria, hitting rock bottom.
Right.
Okay. And that's part of the vernacular, the words, the understanding, the meanings of addiction. And I don't like that one, actually.
Yeah,
That's-
I think you've mentioned that before.
Okay. Yeah, that's one that I kind of rebuke.
Yeah.
Boy, we're simpatico.
What?
We're simpatico.
John, we
think
usually
about
are,
it.
brother.
Yes, we
Have
are.
you noticed that?
That's right.
I mean, seriously,
So-
like, yeah, and the way that I think about this idea of you have to hit rock bottom before you spring back up, is not a terrible idea, but I think of it, that's where you came, spiraling. Like you spiral consistently downward towards, they say this ends in jails, institutions, or death.
Right.
And the idea in my mind is you can get off of that spiral at any point. Now, the progression that we just did, when you jump back on that spiral, it's not where you left off. You actually have already spiraled down more.
Yeah, you're probably a little bit
but
further.
that's I think a better way of thinking about how
Yeah.
this thing progresses.
Yeah.
Lifting the bottom. Is that? Are you familiar? with-
No,
yeah,
I'm not.
I did.
I
Is that you would instead of the person going rock bottom, you do the intervention and you basically get them before they end up in the gutter, which
Okay.
the great majority of people never go to. They're functional to a certain
I like
extent.
that. I haven't. That is a little bit new to me. Lifting the bottom is part of
raising the
goal
bottom
of
up.
treatment.
Yeah, goal
Okay.
of treatment.
Yeah, I love that. Get off the spiraling
Yeah.
down earlier. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. The next one has to more kind of do with like the partnership, but as I listed like codependency.
Perfect. Yeah. That's absolutely a family dynamic of it.
Yeah. I don't think we've talked a lot.
Yeah,
about
we
it.
won't
I mean,
spend
we
a
did
lot of
whole
time on that
We did
today.
a whole episode on codependency. so-
Correct.
And it's not unusual for families to dissolve after rehabilitation.
Absolutely.
And
This
that's
is-
another show.
That is
Yeah.
another show. We've talked about family treatment and family dynamics. Guys, our shows do play off each other. So
They do,
when you
yeah.
see an interesting piece, rest assured at this point, because we have how many episodes?
200. This is 270.
We have had a
Wow.
few. Honestly, not a lot of repeated content. Honestly,
Very few. Yeah.
but we've had different pieces talked about in depth. So
Mm-hmm.
just bank and understand that about our show.
Okay, next I have never satisfied, like in quotations like that, trying to reach the first high, trying to reach the first like
Okay.
Not being satiated.
yeah.
You lose that. Are you thinking in terms of more like amphetamines or cocaine or?
Yeah, I guess I more than like the alcohol, like more the drug side of it.
I love
Are you
this.
just interesting my thought process?
I am, Victoria.
We're
I-
figuring
I-
out what drugs she uses.
I really
Just-
no.
I'm sorry.
No. Here's why. Because I think it's fair to say you are not a substance abuse professional at this point. Is that
I mean,
right?
Yeah, no. I mean, yeah, no.
And there's a part of what happens with that in framing up the understanding in a depthier way what these issues are. Because what did you just say? You said unsatisfied?
Never satisfied.
So the idea in substance abuse treatment is chasing the high.
Okay, so that's basically what I mean.
Right. So there's some misunderstandings out there about what's going on. We have enough information out there where people kind of have some of the pieces but not quite right on it.
Right.
And so the idea here is, and I don't understand this one either, John, maybe you do better than I. Addicts will tell me all the time, like the first time they get high is the best time they've been high.
Right.
Like that just blows my mind a little bit. You know? Like I remember the first time I got buzzed up. It was pretty freaking cool. I was watching a pirate game in my basement in my parents' house in high school or sometime, right? And it was a nice experience, but I can't imagine chasing that the way that it's talked
But it's
about.
never quite that. But I think that's probably physiological, biochemical, physiological. And
Chasing the high.
chasing the high, because it's never quite the same. Once you hit that level, you don't have the newness, the nerve cells, the neurons don't. It just doesn't.
It's something they've already experienced.
Yeah, it's almost like
You can't re-experience.
Yeah, it's almost like it's burned into the like a LCD screen or something. It's
Yeah.
you don't. It fades.
And that's what you're chasing.
You're chasing it. Go back to the
And you
the
can't get there.
intensity. Yeah, you can't get it back.
Like addicts will say the first time was the biggest, best high that they had, and they want to have that again, but can never get it. As a non-addicted person, like I said, it's just hard for me to understand that.
Yeah.
I
Well-
don't,
Well,
Yeah, I get it.
because it's a biological thing.
Right. Yeah.
So it's interesting.
Okay.
That's a different play, but same
But same concept.
same zip code.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Okay. Numbing pain.
Awesome. Love that. Love that. That
I feel like that's more of like a reason why people say that they do things, right? They do that because it numbs the pain of the loss, of the grief, of the whatever.
So it's certainly a thing. The thing that's interesting there that I think does have a lot of misperception about people that don't have addiction with people that don't understand addiction will say you're numbing out pain and you're using to cope. Now that is a
Right.
piece of addiction. It's also a piece of abuse. So it's like a red flag. We don't want to numb things out
Right.
or cope with our distress through using, but addicts generally absolutely will do
Yeah.
that.
that's and it's and I don't want to be unempathetic, but that's an excuse with people dealing with chronic pain. Is
Oh,
that because a lot of times the use of narcotics, such as morphine or let's that addresses more muscular skeletal pain as opposed to nerve pain, where a lot of people with chronic pain, for example, it's nerve pain, it's neuropathy, and morphine and opiates don't touch that, for
No.
example. Not
Totally
at all.
ineffective.
No.
Ineffective.
Yeah, right.
Okay. Intrusive thoughts.
Not at all. I don't think.
Okay.
That is a nice guess. But
I don't know.
I love that. That's interesting that you would say that in a list of addiction,
Like-
language, understanding, because
I mean,
there
everybody.
are-
I have intrusive thoughts, and I'm not an addict, but
Right. That's
yeah.
that's a component of what we do in treatment with treatment models
Gotcha,
that we
okay.
apply to working
so maybe
with
I
addiction.
just got a little confused.
Basically, cognitive behavioral therapy,
Right.
which is a staple of many therapists,
I mean, that's basically what. Yeah.
deal with intrusive thoughts and the thought process and reframing those things.
Right.
We do that with substance abuse just like we would anxiety or
Right.
depression and whatnot.
Yeah.
But would you agree, John, not a part of
Not
the
really a
typical
buzzword.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Withdrawal.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Withdrawal is the physiological piece that goes with the recovery or part of
Right.
the progression and problem in actively using.
Some people use saying, I'm going to go, and there's going to be a word down there, detox, and they'll say,
Yep.
well, I'll just
In there.
reset everything and go back to using. So they
Absolutely.
they-
Let me just clean out my system, and then I'll go right back.
Like literally, Victoria, that's what people think about.
Yeah.
That's the
Yep.
They have no
mentality.
intention of doing the hard work.
Let me just
Right.
reset so I can decrease my tolerance and get going
Yeah.
again. That's nuts.
Yeah.
But along with withdrawal,
Yeah.
which by the way, a little bit more on withdrawal is your body literally just gets so used to the substance in your body and being usually, except for weed, water soluble. It comes out of your body really fast. So
why you sweat a
ultimately your
lot,
body
yeah.
gets shocked. So when you go to detox, which is another one of those words, or the drunk tank is another one of those words from
Yeah.
old school, what you're doing is they're giving you like Librium. That's what my client just had in rehab. They gave him Librium, a medication that tricks the body into thinking that you have those high levels of drug that come down slowly
Right.
And
over the
that's-
course of days, which helps your vital signs recover and
Yeah.
not be so
And
shocked.
interestingly enough, you're more at risk from alcohol withdrawal than you are from other drugs.
Except
At
one.
risk
Except
for what?
one. Are you?
You know the
yeah.
one I'm thinking?
No, go ahead.
Fentanyl.
Fentanyl, of course.
Fentanyl is
Yeah.
something you hear in the news a lot. Like that
Yeah.
is a scary ass drug,
Drug.
y'all. It is killing a lot of people,
Yeah.
and you cannot regulate what you get on the street. It is lacing in with the stuff you're getting. If you're getting stuff on
Oh,
the
and
street,
I understand the context
stop.
you're saying. I
Yeah,
agree
yeah,
with
yeah.
you entirely on that.
Yeah.
But
but go back.
What
in.
do you-
that's hard. But
What do you mean by they're most at risk? At risk
But-
for what?
because it does more in terms of your
Like
disrupting your heart, your breathing.
it's like
your-
physically.
Yes,
your
more-
physical health is more at risk.
Much more difficult to do that. Now, fentanyl,
Yeah.
and all those,
Yeah.
there is that aspect. What I think you have to be very careful and do that. I'm not a medical person,
Yeah.
but let's say morphine, opiates, for example, you have to have that monitored, but not as intensely.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I had fentanyl when I was in labor. I had 2 doses.
Are you serious?
Mm-hmm.
Why am I so shocked at that?
I had 2 doses before
For real?
before I had my epidural. They offered me if I
Fentanyl?
want fentanyl, yes. And they clarified and made sure they were like, it's not. It's right. It's obviously
Dosed.
I have no idea. I don't recall the dosage of it, but it works. I mean, I was chilling for but it's very short
Whoa.
term. Like it only lasted about 30 minutes, and then I had to wait like an hour to 30 minutes before I could get another
I
dose.
am
And then at that
shocked
point,
right now.
I had one, and then I had
they
a my
give
epidural after that.
to people.
Propofol's totally
Propofol,
different. Yeah,
yeah.
that's an anesthesia
Yeah.
drug. That's
Yeah.
wonderful, by the way. I've had propofol
Yeah.
when I got my colonoscopy. That was like taking a freaking nap.
I mean,
It
Michael
was
Jackson
delightful.
abused it. But
Yeah,
I
right.
mean,
It was delightful. I could
Yeah.
tell you.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I was in labor, and
I am
had
just
2
utterly
doses of
shocked.
fentanyl.
I'm shocked by that too.
Are
but-
you?
Yeah.
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 Let me just tell you this quick story of why. I have just this week. Somebody was telling me. I was forgetting who that was. By the way, if you're hearing the show, I apologize and remind me who you were because I just couldn't think of it. Their family member who drove truck
Uh-huh.
was at a truck stop, and as oftentimes happens at truck stops, if you don't know, that's true. Drugs are pretty rampantly shared or sold or dealt with there. So a guy walked up to him with pills in his hand, opened his hand, and said, "Hey, I got stash. You want some hit, And guy's like, "Nah, I don't want that stuff. That's fine." And he went away. Guy doesn't use stuff, but he was found overdosed behind the garbage pail at the truck stop
Because of
the
the-
next day. He overdosed. Now,
Duh.
thankfully, he didn't die, but he had fentanyl in his system.
They said that about
Just from the hand.
cops.
Police officers,
Police
exactly.
officers.
Go ahead. What? Right?
No,
It's
police
amazing.
officers. They have to make sure that they're so gloved and that they're not going to
Like,
to
kinda
absorb
can't-
it
yeah.
because you get breathed the dust. It can
And it can still affect,
kill
like,
you.
yeah.
Still
Almost
affect
the
overdose.
fume. It's a dust, yes, but
Yeah.
like a fume, that's enough to kill people. So I'm surprised. I did not know that they
Yeah.
had.
I mean, I might be able to go
That's
back and
crazy.
look at my medical records to like see how much the
That is
dosage was.
remarkable.
But yeah, I wonder how much it cost. I need to go back.
You
and
must
look at
have
my
been
bill.
micro dosed.
Massive micro dosing
Yeah,
in a safe way, but dang. All right, we
okay.
need to move on though. But yeah,
The next is more like an effect. I wrote relationship issues. And then I also wrote like financial troubles. Like I wrote those back to back.
Okay, financial troubles, kind of, yeah.
And then
a
relationship
thing that we
issues,
look
not
at.
necessarily
I
like
guess
platonic or romantic, but also I guess
Certainly,
that's not necessarily. Now that I'm thinking about it, that's not necessarily a
substance abuse
buzzword.
language. What do you think, John? Is it or is it not? I'm like,
I think it's very disruptive of families, and it can, and certainly financially can destroy somebody. But I don't think we talk about that
in the
same
language. Yeah,
we talk about codependency in families, and that there's a payoff sometimes with families where there's an addiction issue, and that actually one of the spouses or the children actually get involved.
Yeah, I'm trying to
with
think
that.
of ways that we do talk about it. I mean, financial problems is a symptom for sure, and relationship problems are a symptom also for sure. So those are symptomologies, which is probably what was in your brain, Victoria.
Yeah.
But you know, the thing is that it can affect you financially. But a lot of
100%.
people,
Absolutely,
they don't. They can lose their jobs and all of that, but there's
it's another symptom, social and emotional disruption.
Right.
You know, but so those are diagnostic things. But that's cool.
And maybe that's where my brain was going.
I think so, which is cool to hear your
Like,
list.
okay.
Honestly, it really is.
And the last one I wrote was
We're down to the end.
Yeah, is which now that like. As we've talked about in other things I've talked about,
right,
I'm like,
absolutely.
oh yeah, duh. Like, why did I think of that?
Well, the same thing's happening for me, right?
Right. I put irrational behavior.
Okay.
And that might be more of a symptom again instead of a buzzword.
Yeah.
John, why are we laughing? You and I think.
Well, that's true for everybody.
That's why I say I act irrationally sometimes. So
Yeah.
But I could see that as someone had a family member that was a brilliant surgeon, and it was not a first degree relative, but would make very rash decisions. And his drug of choice, of course, was alcoholism back in the 1970s.
Impulsive, rash, for sure.
Right.
But not as much part of the language.
No.
Yeah. Okay.
Because that's why I've loved your list, and particularly towards the second half. It's like the clinical issues are clear. Let's throw a clinical issue, and maybe that's a part of the language. But it's because it's the whole thing. There is listen, for you that don't family member to understand addiction, like why is my kid acting this way? The thing that you got to realize is the whole freaking thing of addiction and substance use issues are not rational.
Right.
There is just no rationale that people would steal their freaking grandmother's TV for $100 dose of pot. But that's what people end up doing. There's no rationale to it.
And they know they're going to get caught.
Right.
They know they're going to get caught.
You can't, I mean, it's just it's amazing, isn't it, John? The working with people, the thought process that people get in, which goes back to the loss of control. By the way, you know this is going to happen. It's happened many times over,
but you still do it anyway.
Still freaking do it. The doctor tells you you're going to die. Your liver's blowing up. You get sober. You stay sober for a month, and then guess what you do? Drink freaking alcohol. Like, what is that?
One of my
bizarre.
One of my clients had he was on the getting a liver transplant. He was a very rational. He was an engineer, a very rational man. Had an organization where he had hundreds of employees, hundreds of thousands of dollars that he made, and he was to the point where he had to get a liver transplant and go through a process of being vetted to receive a liver, because when you've got alcoholism, for example, they're not going to consider you as much.
No, they will bypass.
You're down at the bottom of the list.
For a very good reason.
Yeah.
We understand that people relapse and they end up drinking and using that liver to continue drinking.
Right.
At the level that you...
Beyond the level.
Yeah. Beyond the level that you stopped.
Wow.
You know?
It's amazing.
So I had a guy come in, and he's just he was jaundiced as he could possibly.
That's
Wow.
terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, and jaundice means that you literally begin to turn yellow. Your liver and kidneys and gallbladder
Yeah.
and all are not filtering out
Yellow
the poison,
eyes.
Yeah.
and it comes in and
Yeah.
you it's like poison. I mean, it's amazing when you have so much of this stuff. Victoria, thank you for
course.
doing that. Really,
Yeah, I told you earlier that it was just in my head, and you were like, Can you please write that down? So I jotted
Glad you did.
down what I had in my head.
Glad you did,
But
because you would have lost half of it.
yeah,
right
for
there.
sure.
And,
Yeah.
and I think the thing that I want to make the point again, and why I'm so grateful for doing that,
Mm-hmm.
is it really does help me understand the way people see this issue, that haven't
Right.
been, that have some of the blind spots that
Right.
really give me concern.
Because what we've talked about before that I've been open about is like I have like indirectly had experience with addiction
Yeah,
and substance abuse and use and all the things, and I have a little bit more now that I'm here and I get a little bit more adult clients
absolutely.
than
Well,
working at
in our
school.
conversations, in
Right.
this show,
But also like mine has been more, my experience has been more indirect, specifically having worked with mainly kids in the past. It's usually not the kid, right? But it's the parent. That's so the parent's not directly my client, but I'm having these interactions and
About
having
family
to deal
dynamics.
and having to deal with the effects that it has on the child and like that kind of thing. So
I would give you, the listener, the same suggestion that I'm giving to Victoria about getting training, and I'll narrow that down a little bit more and say to you that it would be really advantageous to your career in working with people, in whatever career, by the way, you might work with people that you come across addiction, not just therapy, but clergy and teaching and whatever. Spend the money to go to one of these conferences that are a 2-3 day conference, and you will get a nice, rich flavor of the substance abuse language and treatment world.
Did you undergo the Father Martin chalk talk?
Oh, buddy,
Yeah.
buddy, did I? Listen,
that's what you
fu-
brought up to
I love that
to
you
help
just.
you the other day.
I love that you just asked me that, John, because that was where I started,
Yeah,
bro.
that's
really?
where I was. Yeah.
When I taught the DUI class in 1997, after I graduated undergrad, and I'm sorry, 1995, I taught the DUI class over and over and over again. I probably watched Chalk Talk many more times than you ever
I
thought
bet
about
you.
it.
I bet you did.
I'm probably 150 times in. That's no joke, right? But I'm so grateful, because what that did is it gave me such an understanding that I wouldn't have any other way.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna
So-
say my license is up for renewal in
Go to a conference.
in June,
2-3
and so
day
and I
conference.
need to finish up with my continuing education hours,
Right.
and so that's what I was thinking about is like seeing
A,
if
you'll
I
get a
can
big
find-
chunk.
of-
B,
yeah.
you'll get good information. And C, you'll have a nice trip, because Amelia Island has an awesome one. And
Yeah.
but the thing
Oh,
is, you'll
yeah.
be around a lot of people in recovery.
Okay.
A
Yeah.
lot of people that are
Yeah.
actually in recovery.
Yeah, there's a something about people that are in recovery that are so beautiful.
Oh,
They're
I
just
couldn't agree.
spiritual folks, and
Couldn't agree
we're
more.
not talking about religious. We're talking about spiritual.
Yeah.
Interconnectivity.
Yeah.
Listen,
Genuineness, transparency, authenticity.
humble.
Yeah.
You know, I love to tell this quick vignette that I heard on News Talk 1110 years ago with a guy that was just conservative talk radio, is what I listened to on the way to work at that time most days. And one day I happened to catch this guy. I forget his name, but he annually on this sober date, which is another buzzword, by the way, another language, your sober date. That's the date upon which you got sober for the last time and maintained it. Anyway, on his sober birthday, he would go back and read his rehab notes, his discharge notes,
Okay.
and his admission notes from the facility that he went and got sober in. I mean, I had no idea that he was an addict, but it was just awesome, because all the time he started his show, he would say, "Proof that you can come back from the living dead," and I never knew what that meant until that day I happened to catch him talk about rising from the living dead. The humility
Yeah.
that people in recovery have, John, is just humbling.
It's a
to see
spiritual
here.
resurrection.
Yeah.
So, but and so you'll hear the term receiving chips, making it like in AA.
Right.
You just part of that milestone
Right.
where you're reborn.
A desire chip
Yeah, a desire
is
chip.
the most coolest chip.
Yeah.
The first day you go, that is a expressed desire to attain sobriety, which, by the way, is the only requirement for membership in AA is a desire to be sober. I guess I'll read my list and we'll kick on to what we have left over and
We
see
only
what
had
buzzes
two that
up
were
in our
the
mind. Is that right? Did you look?
Congruent.
Yeah.
So I'll read that back and we'll go down through these, I think, and see where just take an inventory, which is another buzz term word, right?
Inventory.
Yeah.
Taking an inventory.
Severe.
My list was inadequate, guys. I'm going to be honest with you. I feel like I've mentioned so much just in our conversation, but I don't know. It's wild. So addiction, refer to episode 22. Substance use disorder is just what we call it nowadays. Recovery in and of itself is a word. Recovering versus recovered. We'll definitely circle back and talk about that one. Detox, we mentioned. Rehabilitation, or the term 24-day treatment. IOP, which stands for Intensive Outpatient Program. I'm going to say the anonymous groups and all of the mantras that are part of that. John, what's your favorite 12-step recovery mantra?
Well,
that is out there?
even though I'm a
I know you
man
got
of
one.
faith, it's AA for me. Is
Oh,
that what you're talking about?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a mantra. Yeah,
Yeah.
It's AA for me.
Yeah.
That's your favorite?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
So-
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Here's the one.
What's your favorite?
I shouldn't have asked you that because you're going to turn it around on me. What is my favorite? Well, I don't know how to answer that, to be honest with you. These are the ones that came to my mind, probably because they're the top
It
of the
works
list.
if you work it.
Yep.
Yeah.
I like that one. Easy does it. Turn it over. Did you include that one?
I didn't.
Turn it over, I would say, is
It's not one, but if it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you.
I don't know that that's an AA
It's
phrase.
not,
Should
but
be.
it should be.
Could be.
that's you could write a new book.
Well, it's what we use at my workout
big-
gym. They say if it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you.
You could use
But
that for
I
the
feel like this could be used for that too.
big book. You could use
Yeah,
that.
for the book that I write after I get my PhD.
Well, no, I was talking about
or
an
my
AA
doctorate or
book.
whatever.
Well, do you know what the big book is?
No.
Okay, that is the primary text that Alcoholics Anonymous operates from.
Oh.
Right? It's called the Big Book. I got one right there.
That blue one?
Actually, yep, that blue one. One day at a time, John.
Yes.
Principles before personalities. I think principles before personalities probably is to answer your question
It's your
directly.
favorite?
My favorite 12-step mantra. Yeah. It works if you work it. Don't take another's inventory. No major changes on the first year of recovery. Those are a few that came into my mind from 12-step.
Yeah, and I could also say, don't get involved with a person that's in rehabilitation together with you.
Yeah. Listen,
'Cause,
if
you're-
you're considering treatment and rehab and you're listening to this, don't do that. Listen to John. Say it again.
Yeah, don't get involved with a significant other with another person that's in treatment with
Not
you.
because they're bad people.
Yeah, no, they're wonderful people.
Absolutely.
But
It's
they're in the same boat as you are.
unstable.
Unstable. You need stability, and you need it. And I would say more than just a year. I would say a couple of years.
Oh, do you?
Oh, yeah. I'd say that.
I stay with long-term recovery
Yeah.
being at least a year sober,
Yeah.
and then you can move into like a year to 2 years.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah. I guess
And
actually
it
you're right.
takes
I do
it
say
takes
2
your
years.
brain about 18 months
Oh
to
my gosh,
fully
yeah.
to heal.
Which post-acute withdrawals is on my list. I was going to throw that in, Victoria, when you said withdrawal. Long-term recovery, which we just kind of mentioned, and the concept of early recovery, which is just very early on. Relapse triggers, prevention, tools, dual diagnosis, abstinence, codependency, Victoria had mentioned.
Yeah.
Enabling, intervention, spirituality, higher power. Harm reduction is where I want to end on a controversial topic, but that's just my list. And honestly, we've talked about several
Yeah,
others.
I actually had a professor that believed in harm reduction. But
yeah, there's a lot people do.
Yeah.
We'll get to that. Let's
Yeah.
leave that for the end, the controversy.
How about,
here.
gosh, what was a dry drunk?
Oh, yeah, that's another good one. What is that in the language of substance abuse? Yeah.
Well, the idea is that you may not be drinking, but you're acting and living as though you are still
Intoxicated.
Well, not intoxicated. It's like
Yeah, good.
you're in withdrawal. You've got you are basically unstable because you're not dealing with the emotional aspect of it, and even
Gotcha.
some physiological.
Not dealing with the emotional aspects of active addiction. It's a
Yeah.
good encapsulation
Okay.
there, which is interesting that it doesn't have anything to do with, withdrawal or anything along those lines.
Right.
It's, you're just not getting spiritually well, meaning recovering from all of
You're
these
still
concepts.
angry. You're still
resentful.
or you're holding on to the anger. You're not doing forgiveness. You're not doing the whole. You're
Here's
not
another-
working the steps.
Here's another one, John. White knuckling,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
That's a term in
That's white
substance abuse
knuckling. Yeah.
treatment. You're white knuckling it. You're just grabbing your
You're gonna
ass and
tough it
holding
out.
on.
That's what the founders of AA were doing. They were
Right.
trying to rescue people, but they were not themselves in
Well.
recovery. They were not well.
They were white knuckling it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's another one. Dry drunk is there's so many terms
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
in the
It goes way
language, isn't
beyond
it?
these lists.
Huh?
It goes way beyond the list that.
Yeah, I did
Mm-hmm.
honestly I did a very poor job with my list, but we're talking about it and these things pop up into our brain, don't they, John? Like of just you're ingrained and you have the experience of what active addiction is in recovery.
Don't take another's inventory. I would run into that in the group all the time
Oh,
that
yeah.
I was.
Well, go into that. What is that? Do you know,
Yeah.
Victoria, what taking inventory is referring to?
I could probably guess, but
Well,
Yeah.
that basically what you do is you isolate yourself by making yourself the expert. You actually will do let me do this, and you're trying to fix them when you're not dealing with your own pain or your own issues.
So taking an inventory, Victoria, is part of the recovery process, especially in 12-step, where you're taking, it's literally one of the 12 steps. I think like step 4 or 5, where you're taking an inventory of your personality defects,
Okay.
of character, and also a lot of people in recovery. If you're listening to this, that isn't just the negative pieces of your inventory. When you're taking a good inventory and doing a good step, which is it, John? 4 or
I don't know.
5? Yeah.
Used to have
So when you're doing a step 5, if I'm right about the number, when you're taking your inventory, you want to list all your positives too, guys. You don't just list your negative.
because the guilt and the shame
Right.
is so much
Powerful.
what keeps, I think, people in their addiction cycle is to have that guilt and shame.
And one of the things I think even maybe more than guilt and shame keeps people in active addiction cycles, creating chronic relapse, grief and loss.
Mm-hmm.
Grieving and not letting go of your involved relationship with the substance.
Right.
Does that sound crazy?
No, it doesn't sound crazy, and I believe it very much. And I think and so that's complicated grief, and so that's where the dual diagnosis would come in.
Right.
And unfortunately, there are some programs that don't look at that. They'll look just at in terms of the addiction, but not some of the issues of grief, loss, depression.
You know where I got that
anxiety.
understanding? I actually got that understanding from a conference very specifically on chronic relapsing. They called themselves specialists on chronic relapsers. And it was basically they identified this awesome grief process that we've talked about on the show before. But that's where it comes from, is substance abuse treatment for chronic relapsing, dealing with grief and loss issues. It's really pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So which one of these, Victoria, you look at the list that don't make as much sense, you could help us in our time that we have remaining before we switch to the harm reduction. IOP is a created program, intensive outpatient program, 3 days a week or 4 days a week, 2 or 3 hours a pop, where people go intensively to treatment.
Oh, and
Right.
there's so much
Intensively.
resistance. People are so often
I'm sure.
resistant.
Designed to prevent rehab or as a step down from rehab. My client currently is going to an IOP program in town because he's stepping down from rehab facilities.
Here's a thought too, and I'm wondering because in residents, inpatients, so to speak. And I don't like to use the term patient because, I'm from my counseling background, but it's the idea of, but it is inpatient, and you're in there, and you go and you get 24 days or 28 days, and then you go back into the world.
Right.
And
You're talking about rehab.
But ideally, for me, in a perfect world, a person would stay as they were dealing with homeless in the military with veterans, for example. They would go in for, which was paid by the VA, by the way,
Sure.
for a full year.
Oh wow, yeah.
Well,
Well,
and they
there's
had
long-term.
much higher chances for recovery.
Right. Yeah. There's halfway houses and long-term facilities and sober living and different programs that are out there, isn't there? Which is a part of, understanding the treatment part of it.
And I think social workers had a big hand in doing that. So
Of course.
give yourself
Yes,
a pat
sir.
on the
Yes,
back.
sir. The early social work group.
Yeah.
Any of those, Victoria, that stick out that as you're looking down through that are different, that are weird? We didn't spend a lot of time on relapse and relapse triggers and relapse prevention and tools for relapse prevention. That is a set of things that are a big deal.
Honestly, these listed out, I have a pretty, at least like a relative understanding of them.
I love that.
Like the only one that the post-acute withdrawal syndrome, I'm not quite sure what that is.
It is a part of that is little understood, honestly, in a lot of even professionals in substance abuse treatment, and certainly that clients do not get exposed to a lot. Have you worked a lot with post-acute withdrawal, John?
No.
Really? Yeah, that surprises me. Yeah. I have had good experience in training on that, in that basically you get withdrawal, your body freaks out like we said a little bit ago, right?
Okay.
Oh,
But
okay.
then-
I know what you're talking
Okay.
about.
The post period of that
Yeah.
can be how long? We used to say like several weeks, right, John, where your body is
No,
like
it's a lot
foggy.
longer than you can have it come back anytime.
It's like 18 months.
Yeah.
As you said.
Again, your brain has to heal,
Right.
and reconnect, make neuron synapses.
It's terribly important for people that are trying to maintain recovery because it's frustrating. You feel a pink cloud, which is another term, by the way. All
Yeah.
these terms, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The pink cloud that is excitement in recovery. Like, I feel good. I'm sober. I'm great. And then you hit the wall
Yeah.
and you fall out of the pink cloud and you realize, like, wait a minute, my body's still adjusting. I can't think straight. I'm not, sleeping well. My body goes in and out of this withdrawal syndrome.
That's right, and that's the other. And again, as your mind or your brain is healing, the physiological aspect of your brain it's going to be very tiring and stressful, and for you. And they talk about HALT: hungry, angry,
yep.
lonely, tired.
It's another vernacular.
So so fatigue is not an unusual side effect of all of this, just overwhelming fatigue.
Listen, I hope that you listening are feeling a little overwhelmed because there's a lot here that we've talked about.
Sure.
And this show has been exactly what I wanted it to be honest with you. A plethora of different concepts and pieces in the big understanding that, John, you talked about in having a deep knowledge and understanding of the whole language, the whole experience of both moving into active addiction and then recovery and thereafter. Like there's a lot here. So re-listen to this one. This is a good one to really go through slow and rewind and listen to again and share with your family member if you're an addict, because these are really poignant understandings that really get so confused and misunderstood. I'm glad that we don't have any time for the negative piece, but
Yeah,
I'll
sure, let's-
throw it in there
Okay.
very briefly. John, we can't go long on this.
Okay.
Harm reduction, it's a bit political, where you have methadone clinics and Suboxone treatment, and some people are probably going to be really pissed off with me in the field when I'm purporting, John, I'm a skeptic here. What do you think about all of that?
Well, and I would say that therapists that end up doing that a lot of times they have to do that in terms of getting the work experience that they do. I have trouble with clients having that because it does maybe bring a little more normalcy to their lives.
Yep.
But they're still addicted. They're still very much in that process, and you take that away, they're just at the same level.
It's a struggle.
Struggle.
The idea is you're supposed to be decreasing and whatnot. But listen,
I don't. I'm supervising someone like that. That doesn't happen that much. They're always asking for it to go up.
I know, man. I've worked with people on Suboxone for years. In therapy,
and I love them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they get better. And they're doing some harm reduction and stuff. But yeah, you got to check out the YouTube with John's explosion there. That's true because I feel the same way. It's like, oh my, what are we doing here?
You're just prolonging this. Because the best, and being someone who's not in the shoes, but has experienced quite a bit of it in terms of having my training, is that the best thing, having seen people in recovery, and it's always a process of recovery, is that that is the goal. There's a wonderful, the thing in terms of people dealing with addiction and are in recovery are really exemplars for us, so that they teach us so much, and we need more of that.
Couldn't agree, John. That's a perfect way to take us out. Listen, if you're listening to the show and you have addiction issues, reach out, get help. Sobriety is possible. If you know somebody, love them, support them. They are amazing, humble creatures that can get and stay well, even though it seems like all can be lost. I want this show to be a bit of a light to show you that there is a language and an understanding and that people do get well from this. So love the show. Thank you guys for chatting with us.